Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, everyone. So today we are back with another translation and analysis of poetry. So as you can see here, we have translated a poem. So I pass the floor to Miss Shazwina to give us a bit of an insight on the poem.
Okay, thank you, Nazimi. Now I will start by introducing the poem. So the poem is Nothing Gold Can Stay by Robert Frost. It is a short lyric poem and it was first published in 1923 in his collection New Hampshire. Despite its brevity of only 8 lines, the poem conveys profound ideas about the transient nature of beauty, youth, innocence, and life itself. Frost uses the changing seasons and the cycle of nature as symbols to illustrate that the most beautiful and precious moments are often the most temporary. Through carefully chosen imagery, symbolism, and biblical allusions, he reminds readers that change is an inevitable part of existence and that nothing perfect can remain unchanged forever. The poem's simple language, rhythmic structure, and universal message allow it to resonate with readers of all ages, making it one of Frost's most memorable and frequently studied works. Ultimately, Nothing Gold Can Stay encourages readers to appreciate life's fleeting moments while accepting the natural passage of time. That's all from me.
All right. Thank you very much, Miss Shazwina. Miss Diana, do you have anything to say regarding the poem also?
I will introduce the poet, which is Robert Frost. Was an American poet born on March 26, 1874, in San Francisco, California. And he also became one of the most celebrated poets in American literature. And after his father's death, Frost moved with his family to New England, a region that greatly influenced his poetry. And his work also often portray rural life, nature, human emotions, and also everyday experience by using a simple language while exploring a deep and complex themes. That's all from me.
All right. Thank you very much. So there is a bit of the insight on the poem and also the poet. Now we move on to the Malay translation. As you can see here, that we have translated. First up, let us allow Miss Shazwina to give her talk about the Malay translation.
Okay, so the translated text of this poem is hijau pertama alam semula jadi ialah emas, warnanya yang paling sukar dipegang, daunnya yang awal ialah bunga, tetapi hanya sejam. Kemudian daun reda demi daun, maka Eden tenggelam dalam kesedihan, jadi fajar terbenam pada hari ini, tiada emas yang dapat bertahan. So I'm going to explain about the overall translation strategies used in these translated texts are literal translation and borrowing. For literal translation, I mainly follow the original wording and sentence structure. The justifications behind this are to preserve Robert Frost's imagery and poetic symbolism and maintains fidelity to the source text. Moreover, for the borrowing technique, the example shown in the translated text is the phrase Eden, which we borrow from the original poem. Justifications for this is that the word Eden is a proper noun and biblical reference, and to keep the original tongue, preserve its religious and literary significance. That's all from me.
All right. Thank you very much, Miss Shazwina. So, Miss Diana, do you have anything to say also?
Yes, I will explain about the the next translation, which is started from Then leaf subsides to leaf, which is I translate to daunnya. Kemudian daun reda demi daun. And then until nothing gold can stay, which is I translate it into tiada emas yang dapat bertahan. As for the strategies that I use is for the uh, kemudian daun reda demi daun, I use an adaptation. The word subsides has no direct poetic in Malay, and the phrase reda demi daun is used to convey the gradual feeling, the gradual fading and transformation of nature. And then, as for the so Eden sang to grief, so dawn goes down today. The strategies I use is borrowing and literal translation, which is the proper noun Eden is retained through borrowing because it carries important religious and symbolic significance. And the rest of the line is translated literally to preserve the image of loss and the fall from perfection. And then last but not least, nothing gold can stay. I use a literal translation, which is the translation preserve both the literal and symbolic meanings of gold, representing beauty, youth, and perfection. And the line is effectively communicates the poem's central theme of impermanence. That's all for me.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Diana. Now we move on to the uh, reviewing the translation. So first up, let's give the floor to Miss Melissa.
Okay, thank you, Nazimi. So, first of all, I want to say that the translated poem, which is the Malay one, successfully conveys the basic meaning of the original poem. However, several issues affect its naturalness, poetic quality, and accuracy. First of all, I'm going to touch the in terms of the language and word choice. As you can see for the first translation, the first line, hijab pertama alam semula jadi ialah emas, is grammatically understandable, but it sounds awkward in Malay. For my suggestion is that it needs a more natural version that could be hijab pertama alam bagaikan emas. So it sounds like an idiom there. Next, warnanya yang paling sukar dipegang, the second line, is a literal translation of her hardest who to hold. However, as we all know, colors cannot literally be held in Malay. A phrase such as warnanya paling sukar dikekalkan would better convey the intended meaning. Moving on to the meaning, the original poem uses figurative language to describe the fleeting beauty of nature. While the translation retains the basic meaning, some poetic nuances are lost because of the literal translation. The phrase tetapi hanya sejam, the fourth line, translate but only so an hour literally. However, the original implies that the flower-like stage lasts only briefly. A more natural rendering might be, for my suggestion is that namun hanya seketika. Last but not least, in terms of the style and the tone, the original poem is lyrical and poetic, whereas the translated version reads more like a direct explanation. So the rhythm and imagery of the original are weakened due to the literal translation choices. So in conclusion, overall the translation communicates the general message of the original poem, but relies heavily on literal translation. As a result, some of the poem's figurative meaning, poetic beauty, and natural flow are a bit lost. Adopting more natural and expressive Malay wording would help preserve both the meaning and artistic quality of the original poem. So that's all my feedback.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Melissa. So now let's hear a bit from Miss Alia Uzma. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, thanks to Mr. Nazmi. So I will continue the rest of the line for translation review. Okay. Um, First, the line, kemudian daun reda demi daun, translated from then leaf subsides to leaf. It sounds too literal because the word reda is usually used for emotions or situations, not for leaves. Because of this, the meaning becomes unclear in Malay. In the original poem, frost means that the special and beauty leaf eventually becomes an ordinary leaf. A more suitable translation could be kemudian daun itu kembali menjadi daun biasa because it conveys the idea that beauty and uniqueness do not last forever. Second, the line maka Eden tenggelam dalam kesedihan, translated from so Eden sank to grief. This sentence is already correct. Yeah, it's already correct, but uh, maybe you can use word kesedihan. You can change it to kedukaan because it feels more intense and closer to grief. But overall, I think the translation you use is already correct, natural and acceptable for the understanding the meaning lah. Okay, then um, third, the line jadi fajar terbenam pada hari ini, translated from so dawn goes down today is inaccurate. The phrase pada hari ini means today, but the word day in the original poem refers to daytime or siang. So this changes the original meaning and weakens the imagery of dawn gradually turning into an ordinary day. A better translation could be begitulah fajar beransur menjadi siang. Finally, the line tiada emas yang dapat bertahan, translated from nothing gold can stay. Successfully, this sentence conveys the literal meaning and the main message of the poem, but as well as like Miss Diana said, gold is symbolic and refers to beauty, perfection, and precious moments in life. Um, but maybe I can suggest another sentence like tiada yang emas dapat kekal. Maybe the word stay can be translated to kekal, not bertahan. So overall, the translation succeeds in presenting the poem's theme of impermanence. However, some lines are translated too literally, so causing the loss of poetic imagery and symbolic meaning. By using more natural expressions and paying closer attention to symbolism, the translation could better reflect the beauty and depth of Robert Frost's original poem. So that's all from my part. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Miss Alia Uzma. Okay, so that is a bit of the review of the translation that has been done. Now we move on to the literary divide elements and also the themes of the poem. So I pass the floor to Raja Imran.
All right, thank you, Nazimi. And I will be analyzing in terms of literary elements, the comparison between literary elements between the translated text and the original poem. Now, the comparison between both is that the what was it called? The rhyme scheme for the original one, uses strict AABBCCDD couplet structure written in iambic trimeter, which is like 3 stress beats per line, and like it gives like an original crisp, fast song-like pacing that mirrors how quickly time flies. Now the translated version naturally shifts away from the strict and rhymes, which is like the A A B B C C and D D. And however, it compensates by creating an internal rhythm using soft, elongated vowels, which is, for example, semula jadi kesedihan and bertahan. The pace becomes slower and more meditative, and which amplifies the poem's melancholic mood. Now, they also have metaphor and symbolism. In the original version of the poem, gold represents the peak of absolute purity, youth, and value, while green represents, early life. The translated version, emas and hijau, carries identical symbolic weight in also in Malay culture. Emas traditionally signifies something that is, valuable, ultimate, and quite rare also, while hijau denotes youth and freshness. The metaphorical power of the translated text translates seamlessly without losing any cultural or emotional relevance. And then we have the tone and diction. So in original one, the diction is deceptively simple, monosyllabic, and detached, yet deeply somber. Now, the translated version, for the Malay one, Malay diction feels, slightly more poetic and dramatic. For example, sank to grief becomes tenggelam dalam kesedihan, literally means submerged in sadness, while frost sank is a quiet downward motion. Tenggelam adds more flavor. It adds more like flavor to a heavier, more immersive emotional weight to the line. Now, we also have like a structural and element. I'm not sure if I wanted to get into that because I already written the notes, but some of the structural and element comparison is that the allusion, so Eden sank to grief, maka Eden tenggelam, which for the impact, it is identical. Both appeal to the universe, archetype of a lost paradise to show that, decay is a cosmic rule, not just a biological one. And we also have the imagery, dawn goes down today. Fajar terbenam pada hari ini. I have a little bit of a shift in scope. The original ones implies a routine, daily transition between day and dawn, which makes it feel incredibly immediate and present. So I think that is what I'm trying to that is basically some of the things that I get as a literary element to the translation of the text poem. Now I will be passing the floor to the next presenter for the literary analyst.
All right, thank you very much, Raja Imran. So I'm also another analyst for the literary elements of this poem. Okay, so let's start with the themes and the message of the poem. So what exactly is the poem talks about? Okay, so first up, it will be the impermanence of the beauty and youth. So what does that mean? So the core message is that nothing pristine, beautiful, or youthful can last forever. So the Frost used the word gold not just to represent the metal, but as a metaphor for absolute peak of perfection and innocence and vitality. So you know how women these days show wear gold and to show prestige, and also um, the perfection of it, the beauty of it. And also another theme is the cyclical inevitability of change and decay. Okay, so change is not presented as a tragic accident, but it is a fundamental law of nature. Everything changes. Growth requires the loss of early innocence for the leaf to become a leaf, and it must outgrow its flower like youth. Decay and progression are mandatory parts of the cosmic design. That is the value of this poem. That is the message that you want to send. Next, I move on to the literary devices that is used. So Raja Imran has also already go into detail about the metaphor, symbolism, and other stuff. So I would go into the alliteration that is used in this poem. The repetition of the consonant that sound like a melodic and rhythmic quality that makes the poem feel like an ancient, inescapable proverb. For example, here the usage of hardest hue to hold, and also dawn goes down to day. See how it kinda rhymes? Uh, that is the alliteration that is used in this poem. Next is the allusion. Okay, so what is the allusion that is used is the reference to Eden. It goes like, so Eden sang to grief. Okay, it is a biblical allusion to the Garden of Eden and the fall of man, which is elevating a simple observation about leaves into a profound commentary of human mythology and story. Not really familiar with the Malaysia story, but more on the Western side, mythological. So next is the emotion and the cultural resonance of this poem. So the emotional resonance is an universally melancholy and acceptance, which is the poem evokes a bittersweet melancholic feeling that triggers a sense of nostalgia for things like we have childhood, past love, or a golden era that in our lives. However, because Frost frames um, this loss as a natural world and the emotional impact is balanced by a sense of stoic acceptance, it hurts that nothing gold can stay, but it is a natural order of things, as I've said before. It is how the world works. Next is the uh, cultural resonance, the bridge between English and Malay perspective. So looking at English, the original and the Malay translation, nothing gold can stay, with tiada emas yang dapat bertahan, we can see how this themes transcend the cultural boundaries. So from the Western and biblical context, it will be for English speaker, the poem heavily relies on Western literary tradition. For example, like particular concept like the Golden Age and the Judeo-Christian narrative of Eden and the fall of from paradise. We Malays doesn't have that. So the Malay and universal context is Malay translation into a beautifully captures the essence of fana, impermanence, and a concept that is deeply rooted in Malay culture, literature, and spiritual philosophy. So phrase like hijau pertama alam semula jadi ialah emas, and kemudian daun reda demi daun mirror the traditional Malay appreciation for the nature, which is what we call alam. As a teacher of life's fleeting realities, in both cultures, nature serves as a ultimate warrior, ultimate mirror for the human mortality. That is all from me that I feel from the English and the Malay translated text of this poem. Now, I give the floor back to Miss Shazvina to tell her a bit about the reflection that she gained from this meeting.
Okay, so in this translation journey, in translating Robert Frost's Nothing Good Can Stay was both challenging and rewarding for me because the poem relies heavily on figurative language and condensed meaning. Throughout the translation process, I realized that understanding literary elements such as metaphor, symbolism, tone, and rhythm was essential in producing an accurate and meaningful translation. Rather than translating each word literally, I had to consider the deeper message conveyed by each line and how it could be effectively expressed in Malay while preserving the poem's artistic quality. One of the biggest challenge was interpreting the poem's metaphors and symbolism. For example, the word gold does not simply refer to the precious metal but symbolizes beauty, purity, youth, and the fleeting nature of life's most valuable moments. Similarly, the phrase Eden is a biblical symbol representing innocence and perfection before the fall. Understanding these symbolic meanings helped me avoid a purely literal translation that could have obscured the poem's intended message. Instead, I aim to preserve the symbolic significance while making the translation understandable for Malay readers. Overall, this translation journey reinforced my belief that literary skills are really essential for translators, particularly when working with poetry or figurative texts. A translator must be able to identify literary devices, interpret their deeper meanings, and recreate similar effects in the target language. Without a strong understanding of metaphor, symbolism, imagery, tone, and poetic style, there is a risk of producing a translation that is linguistically correct but fails to capture the emotional and artistic qualities of the original work. That's all from me.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Shazwina. Now we move on to Miss Diana.
As for me, my individual reflection is that as is translating the selected poem made me realize that literary translation involves much more than converting words from one language to another. And through the discussion with my group members, I learned that understanding literary elements such as metaphor, symbolism, tone, and also rhythm is very essential for producing an accurate and meaningful translation. And I also learned that tone and rhythm play a significant role in preserving the emotional impact of a poem. And this experience taught me that literary skills are extremely important for translating, especially when dealing with figurative and poetic text, as Miss Shazwina mentioned. And translator also must be able to interpret a hidden meanings, which is quite hard for us since sometimes we don't know the literal meaning of the poem itself. And I see that the strong literary knowledge can make the translator to preserve both message and the artistic beauty of the original text. That's all for me.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Diana. Now we move on to the next person. There will be Miss Melissa. Do you have anything to say?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Nazimi. So, as the translation reviewer earlier, I initially thought that reviewing a translation only involved checking for grammar and vocabulary errors. However, I learned that translation review also requires evaluating whether the original message, tone, and style are maintained. This task helped me to appreciate the challenges that the translators face, which is Shazuna and Diana, especially when translating literary texts such as poems. As we know, poems is not easy to be translated. I also found that it is interesting to see how certain meanings and emotions can be difficult to transfer from one language to another. Overall, the experience as the reviewer, strengthened my understanding of translation and developed my ability to analyze text more critically. That's all from me.
All right. Thank you very much, Miss Melissa. Move on to Miss Alia Uzma.
All right. For individual reflections, from this poem, I learned that, and also about from the discussion, I learned that literary translation is not only about translating words literally. The translator must also have a deeper meaning, understand symbols and hidden meanings. For example, in this poem, gold symbolizes beauty and perfection, not just the metal itself. So this activity improved my ability to interpret deeper meanings in literary texts. And personally, this experience has improved my critical thinking skills because I had to evaluate the translation from different perspectives and justify my suggestions with evidence from the original poem. It also made me appreciate the role of translators as well, um, especially in literary translation where every word carries meaning and artistic value. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Miss Alia Uzma. Now we move on to Raja Imran.
All right, thank you so much, Nazimi. Based on my reflection on analyzing the literary elements just now, is that okay, I'm not sure if this is like related at all, but this is what I got. So like I learned to maintain the emotional truth of a poem is like far more important than forcing a strict rhyme scheme. For example, when the original poem follows the rhyme scheme of A B B C C D D and so on and so forth, translating the poem does not necessarily mean that you have to exactly follow the rhyme scheme. You have to follow. You can also follow, as in the emotional depth and the emotional message that the poem is trying to convey. Because for me, I took English literature in high school, and one most important thing that we always learn is that to maintain the emotional flow of the poem itself, because poems is all about your emotions, and by letting go of Frost's crisp AABB English rhyme, um, the translator, based on what I got, allowed to do what Malay language does best. Like it used deep, resonant, and soulful words like tenggelam and reda, and that makes up for the whole not following the rhyme scheme. And it also creates a mood that feels natural to a Malay reader. And another one is the universality, like the universe of change. So like whether the poets say gold or emas, or like Eden or surga, the human grief over the passage of time is identical. It proves that no matter our culture or language, we all share the same bittersweet ache when watching beautiful things change. And that's what the translation is really about for this poem itself, because not only that the original text and the translated text share the same bittersweet ache of things change, they also changed. The word just flew out of my mind. Sorry. Anyways, moving on. Last but not least is embracing imperfections. That the poem states that nothing gold can carry is a perfection of fleeting. In a way, a translation can never be perfect mirror of the original. It is a new version that has grown out of the old one, just as the flower made for the leaf to grow. The original English texts have had to change form to become beautiful Malay poem. Embracing the slight imperfections or shift in translation mirrors the exact philosophy the poet is trying to convey or teach us. So that is all for my reflection. I will move on to Nazimi next for his reflection.
All right, thank you very much, Raja Imran. So from me, one of the most noticeable thing for me is the mythological shift, which is the Eden, as I've mentioned earlier. So, um, as you know, Malays doesn't have what you would call an Eden. So, in the Malay translation, maka Eden tenggelam dalam kesedihan. The word Eden is retained. For Malay reader, this still successfully evokes a universal concept of a lost paradise, which is heaven, or Malays would call it surga. Bridging the gap between Western and literary allusion and also the Islamic Eastern spiritual narrative of humanity earthly journey, it highlights how certain grief like loss of paradise are universally understood and across all mankind, right? Just have a different meaning and different term for it. So that really touched my understanding of the mythological shift. And one final thought will be that translating this poem forces us to realize the impermanence of the universal language. And whether we say nothing gold can stay or we say tiada emas yang dapat bertahan, the emotional edge remains identical. The language just changed, but the rhythm shift is shared with the human experience and language. So watching something beautiful slip through our fingers remain entirely unchanged. Even when the language changes and different translation, it would stay the same. So that's all from my reflection of the poem that we have translated. Um, I think we have reached the end of our meeting today. So I would like to say thank you everyone for attending today. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon.